and welcome to this episode of Words Want Wisdom. I am absolutely delighted to welcome Lorna Jennings, a local author, in conversation with us today. So Lorna, you are very welcome, and thank you so much for being here and sitting down in conversation with Words Want Wisdom.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Lovely to have you. So Lorna, you are a homegrown author from Benbradagh.
Yes.
And you have just recently launched your second novel,
Yes.
The Yankee at Benbradagh.
Yes.
And I can say it's a wonderful novel. I was thoroughly engrossed by it.
Thank you.
And we'll get to talk about that in a little while. And you had your second book launch at Dungiven Library there in June of this year.
Yes.
Fantastic. And that was a really successful event.
Absolutely, yes.
And you earlier on had your first book launch.
Yes, in Benbradagh.
In Benbradagh.
Town Hall, yeah.
And that was, you have another novel, and it's entitled Breakfast in Heaven.
Yes.
And am I right in saying that both of these novels were written and published in 2024?
Yes.
Okay, so do I not feel, a little bit inferior? There's an old saying, everybody has a novel, at least one novel in them, and you're pumping out two in a year, so go you. You definitely have.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did have them in script form, so it was easier for me to develop it into a book.
So you have your first book launch in Benbradagh, as we've just said.
Yes.
And I know, just from having a wee chat with you, that you have more book launches planned in Belfast and beyond. So we will definitely be watching out for all of those exciting events.
Yes.
So I'm full of cliches here today, but without being too cliched, you are the proverbial whirlwind of productivity. So before we get stuck into discussing this latest release, tell us a little bit about your background, Lorna, and what it was that led you to tap in and unleash this talent and flair for writing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I believe I was born a writer. It was always something that I always enjoyed doing, even at a young age. I enjoyed writing songs and poems, but I had very little confidence then, due to I had, at a very early age, I had been bullied by a school teacher, which really put me back and had a negative impact on my own personal development. But also, I didn't realise until 2017 that I was dyslexic, which actually it was a relief for me to find out, because I knew that there was always something not quite right. So that helped knowing that. So those things, I always kind of contained the writer within me. But I continued to write then later, especially when I had a group of friends that were very encouraging, and I wrote songs, and we got them recorded in a friend's recording studio, and we would have sang them every weekend. And then later again in life, I stopped writing, and then I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, goodness.
In 2010, and I had to fight for my life. So that changed everything for me. I did fight for my life. I thank God I'm a woman of faith, big faith, and he got me through it. And in 2011, I got the all clear. So yeah, that changed everything for me. And I knew that I had to make a few decisions, major decisions in my life, and I realised how life was so short. And I decided one of the things that I was changing was my writing. I was going to write, and I was going to be confident about it, and that's exactly what happened. And I began to write. I began to have vision, which actually I lacked before. And I started to write scripts and poetry within the scripts, and was very privileged enough to work down in Belfast with Bruiser Theatre and
They're a
Beyond
phenomenal
Skin.
organisation. They really are.
Yeah,
Bruiser.
they were fantastic because we went into the youth in both sides of the community at that time and worked along with them, and it was so successful. Honestly, it was absolutely such a privilege and incredible to hear kids, you know, reciting your poems or singing your songs. Just as it was in Portadown in the town hall at the first book launch, when I was delighted to have along with me on board the beautiful and talented Holly Coulter of Holly Coulter's Speech and Drama, with the kids who sang a song of mine called Little Robin and recited some poems. So that was amazing. So, yeah, but actually, to get back to your question, yeah, last year I turned 60.
Oh, congratulations.
So again, thank you.
Whatever your secret is, I want to know before you leave here.
Thank you so much. But that to me, I thought, right, I'm going to set myself a challenge here, especially with my writing. There was a few things on the old bucket list I needed to tick off, and one of them was to turn one of my scripts into a book, and I decided that I'll do that with Breakfast in Heaven. Lo and behold, I had sent it to two publishers, the manuscript to two publishers, and both of them wanted it, wanted to publish it.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, I can tell you, I've had lots and lots of rejections.
That must have been a lovely, lovely, sweet moment.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
In fact, I was with another girl at that time, or a few colleagues, and I was just, for the rest of the day, that was it. I was just so excited. But they wanted, so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to write another one. So I'll turn the other script as well into a book. So that's what I did. And they wanted to publish the Yankee up in Benbradagh as well, which for me, I mean, I had never really any intention of writing a book because I'm a very visual person. I'm not a reader. I mean, I wouldn't go out and buy a book and read it. I prefer to watch stage plays or films, but I'm very glad I did.
It's really interesting when you say that, because like the writing process, therefore you are fully immersed into it, so you're visualizing everything, so it's almost like a little movie that's rolling within your head as you're writing it.
Yeah, I mean that the Yankee up in Benbradagh is a movie in my head, and I just like to say I think it should be a movie.
Absolutely. Any movie makers out there?
Yes.
Speak to Lorna.
Yes.
There's just a couple of things that you've said there that have really struck a chord with me.
Yeah.
Because in another world, in another life, I'm also a teacher.
Yes.
And there are so many things, and I'm a teacher of English. And so many things that you have just said there that I'm going to make sure that my pupils listen to what you have said. So even the fact that you had a bad experience in early childhood, it just goes to show, number one, the power that a teacher can have and the impact, either positively or negatively. And I think for all the good teachers that we have had in our lives, that negative experience, it lives with you like a trauma throughout life.
It did for years. But fortunately enough, I mean, I was never academic. I mean, I just couldn't wait to get out of school. But when I was at the Tech, I had a great English teacher, and he seen the potential in me, and he kept saying, Lorna, you know, your compositions is great. You know, you keep at this, and I mean, I was so chuffed because no teacher had ever teacher had ever given me praise like that. But I was still determined to leave school because I never liked my school years, you know. And
because of that negative experience, and also because if you have lived your whole life without getting a diagnosis until 2017 of dyslexia, that has probably, again, impacted your relationship and attitude towards education and,
Oh, very much so.
So much. And that slipped under the radar.
Yes.
For so long. But still, it hasn't held you back. And I just think that triumph over adversity there is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then when you, on top of that, you come back and you say that you had breast cancer and that you were actually fighting for your life.
Yes.
It kind of puts everything into perspective, and it makes you value the gift of life and the talents and the gifts that you have. And you spoke of your faith there as well, and how important that is to get you through, because we all know that life bites.
Oh, it does.
And when it bites, everybody feels it. So I think that's... So in spite of all of that, you have still gone on to write your 2 books, get your books published. And I'm sure that if you looked back, if you could have a conversation with your younger self in that moment where you were being bullied by that particular teacher, she wouldn't believe that you would be sitting here, a published author, so successful.
And strangely enough, you just saying that actually in my first book, Breakfast in Heaven, that was the thought process of the book. If I was to speak to myself as a child, what would I say? And actually in that book, she does go back in her life and she does speak to herself as a child in a supernatural experience. So yes, but yes, it did hold me back for quite a while. I was a bit of a drifter, but always an arty person. Always. There was always a poem. Even in my younger years, when I frequented pubs, you would have known where I sat because the beer mat would have been torn off and there would have been a poem.
Just written there. It was flowing out of you.
It was just flowing out of me.
Very good. Good. Well, in terms of the novel, we've talked about the Yankee at Benbradagh. So Benbradagh is in the name. So in terms of the context, it's set in 1970s war-torn Northern Ireland. And I think anybody who's familiar with Northern Ireland is familiar with the Troubles, as that period has been known. And against the global backdrop as well, we had the Cold War going on as well. And so conflict is really raging in the background in terms of the historical context. If we then look at how that impacted here in our own island, in Benbradagh, that was used then as a US Army Naval's communication base. And that Benbradagh is situated just up the road from where we're talking today in Dungiven. And I think people from the area would be very familiar with that kind of historical context. Now, in the novel, in the world that you have created, this occurrence, this arrival of this US Army Naval base, it had a really unsettling and I'm going to use the word adverse impact on the normally quiet, subdued community. And the ripple effect goes further because it also had such an impact on Esther, our protagonist. And we'll chat about Esther shortly. But before we get to Esther, can you share with us the significance of the historical and geographical setting and the reasons that you had for situating your novel in that particular time and place?
Wow, there's a lot there, yes. Well, I mean, it just happened to be that I had visited a sister who lives actually close by here, and I just happened to be sitting, staring out the window, and away in the background there was a mountain, and we decided, well, we started a conversation on mountains. This is how it all came about, and she said, "Come on with me and I'll take you to a mountain that you've never been before." And within the hour, I was standing on top of Benbradagh summit. Exactly at the place where the US Army naval base was erected a way back at that time. And I remember just standing, and it was just the beauty and splendour of the breathtaking view, along with all my creative juices that were starting to flow together in harmony. And this was actually a time where I didn't want to write, because I had had a few rejections, and I thought, no, I'm not doing it no more. I'm not putting myself through this pain any longer, But I couldn't help it. And we had conversations about, the people that would have been stationed there, the US Navy that were stationed, what they would have thought there, what they would have talked about, and actually then, would there have been any local relationships with any of the ladies?
Yeah.
And bang, that was it. It was just, the penny had dropped. I just thought, yeah, of course they did. Of course there must have been something. And that was really the seed that grew within me for this book, to know that really there is some kind of heartbreaking love story here, because it wouldn't have been easy at that time. And with the troubles as well. So that was really how the seed was planted, and how it all started.
Okay. And the world back then was a much smaller place. It was much more colloquial. Certainly the island of Ireland was very insular. So it would have been culturally very different for these young men who were, if you like, being stationed there, and culturally very different, and unnerving for the people in the local community, as they're seeing all of these things taking place. I'm wondering, I suppose, what the legacy of that is going to be. And as I was reading the book, it made me look at that, to consider it in a way that, I probably have never had to think about it before. So really it was very good to think about how, I suppose with immigration and migration that we have today, it's a huge topic as well. So there was a lot of very important lessons and experiences that were written into this. And you think that, we don't ever seem to look back and learn from history. We just seem to perpetually repeat it.
Absolutely.
And I think that is something that is written there in terms of the conflict that is.
Yeah. I had to do a lot of research, and actually, you've got to put yourself into that situation. And when I was doing my research, I went on YouTube and all the recordings that there was of Benbradagh, and I learned a lot from that. And then I scrolled down and read some of the comments, and actually there was a guy called Radar, and he was an American and had worked.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
oh my
had worked in the
goodness,
communications there, and hence the nickname Radar.
Very good.
And he had shared some of his fond memories, but also, he had said too that we often went down during the week into Dungiven to McReynolds pub.
Okay.
And I wonder if it's still there. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, wow, a pub. And that to me was a scene in my head. That was a scene. And so I changed McReynolds to Rene's, as
yes,
now. And I've actually visited McReynolds pub now in Dungiven,
Okay.
and they're selling my books in there. If anyone, and a big shout out to Anthony and Martina, who were very amused that actually they didn't realise that they were in a book.
That they were the setting for a lot of the action.
Yeah. And that the fictional room up the stairs, room 3.
Okay.
That if anybody wants to know any more about that, they'll have to buy the book. But yeah, so, and also then finding out that there was a castle in Dungiven as well, which really excited me. And I thought, well, there's another place. And I visited it too. I mean, it's nothing like what I had written in the book, but it's there and it's in the book, and there's a scene around it. Going back to actually having lived there during that time, and I had to research that. Now, I mean, I was young in the 1970. I was born in 1964, but I didn't know a lot about the Cold War, and knew more about the Troubles, but I could understand how threatened they might have felt with the Americans or the Yankees.
And I think for the young men as well, it would really have upset the apple cart, because you had these very tall, very striking looking men coming in, and I suppose there's a little bit more competition for affection as well. So even there's a conflict in terms of human nature there within the context. So it really was very, very wonderful. And, you know, I find the context in terms of the historical and geographical setting, like that was all encompassing. It was just wonderful, you know, and the beauty of it. And one of the things, when we had been in touch about sitting down to get the conversation organised, I've been doing a wee bit of snooping on your website, and I saw a picture of you at the Cowgate on Benbradagh, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's, you know, I could so relate to that image in the book. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that was very much a favourite place of Esther's. Yeah, and she could see what was going on, and actually that's where they met. But yes, Northern Ireland at that time, I mean, we had the Troubles, and it was a terrible time, and people were frightened. There was fear in people, and there was risks to be taken because life had to go on. There was heartache and pain. I remember it very well, you know, even in my own personal life, as a child. My father, he was born in County Mayo, actually in Ashford Castle.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because
you're clearly
because my grandfather wasn't Mr. Guinness. No,
Are you sure?
Positive. The Guinnesses owned it at the time, and my grandfather was land steward there, and my grandmother was cook. So my father had a real strong Irish accent, and married my mother, came up here to live. So we actually, as a child, I lived in a Catholic estate in Portadown. I was very happy to live there, even at that time. I mean, I was the only one that had a different school uniform, and had friends. There was the girls' school and the boys' school of the Catholic side, and I remember thinking, oh, you know, imagine having nuns, you know, teaching you, which I have referred to in the book, and thinking that was a strange thing, but actually enjoyed my years there. I mean, I got a lot of name calling, but that didn't bother me. I had friends, and that was it. And it was nice to be different. It's always been different, so that was helpful. But then later on, with the Troubles as well, my father had a really good friend who was in the forces, and he was blew up in a car bomb, and the effect that had on him at that time, and my mother and the rest of us. And then later on, you know, I mean, my father and mother had passed on at the stage, and I had my son who was 10 or 11, and he was out playing with his friend in his friend's house a few doors up, and the window had been open, and someone had threw a pipe bomb through it.
Oh, goodness.
And my son and his friend had lifted it up. I just thank God, you know, it didn't go off. The place was cordoned off, and sure, it was a pipe bomb. And my son, thank God, is coming 40. So, and he has a daughter of his own now. But those days were really dark days.
Yeah.
And even in the streets, you had the army, you know, parading up and down. I mean, young people now don't know what that would have been like, or getting searched going into shops.
No, thankfully, you know, we live in a post-conflict society.
Yes.
Which is such a wonderful thing, which is why I think that the context and the setting of this is so important, because it really does make you look at those periods in history and to look at it. And, you know, I know we're going to talk about the ending of the novel, but we're going to be looking at the ending of the novel against that context. And it poses so many big questions, you know, like you read the book and you're taken on this journey. You have the beauty of Benbradagh, and you capture that so wonderfully in terms of that geographical setting. And you have it set alongside the historical context locally and globally, which fits, you know, it's almost superimposed on that. And when you get through to the end, you're like, okay, this book makes me ask big questions that you're never going to, you know, that you're constantly pondering. And I think that's a sign of a really powerful book, a really powerful story. And one of the wonderful things about reading a local author is that you can identify with the people, with the place, with the context.
Yes.
And certainly for young people who perhaps aren't consuming literature and novels in the way that maybe I did as a child because of the, you know, impact of social media, and everything has to be in small digestible snippets. I think that this is a really great window into reading and learning, and just absorbing the written word on the page as well. You know, the value added there is second to none. So it's wonderful, Lorna. So I think we'll move on and talk about Esther. I love Esther, our protagonist.
Beautiful, beautiful Esther.
Oh, I thought everything about her just captured me, from her name to her spirit, her, you know, character, her strength.
Her strength.
Everything was just... And her beauty was more than just physical. You know, and that's hard to capture. And I think you mastered that really, really well.
Wow. Thank you.
So for those who haven't yet read the text, I'll explain a little bit. So she is our beautiful young protagonist. She lives with her family in a cottage on the side of Benbradagh Mountain, situated near Dungiven. She is a child of a mixed marriage, which I thought was really, you know, another rich layer that was written in, especially against the context of the time. Whilst today many people mightn't necessarily blink an eye at that, back in the 1970s, it would have been a very different ball game.
Absolutely, it really was,
altogether.
Yeah, you had to marry one of your own kind.
Yes. And that, you know, one of your own was very powerful there. So I thought even that little twist there was like, okay, my goodness, you know, you were just pushing through. So the erection of the US Naval Communications Base altered the tide of Esther's life forever, as well as shaping and changing the context of Dungiven and Benbradagh. most notably because in Esther's life, it brought the arrival of the handsome US Army Naval Commander Reuben Redpath. And again, I love his name. And, you know, I am a romantic at heart. So when that first meeting, I swooned, you know, I did, you know, my heart just, you know, I felt what Esther felt. So you had written that very powerfully. And so that accidental meeting, and they were very, very drawn to each other.
Oh, yes.
And he was slightly older than her as well, which again added another dynamic to it.
He was actually a good bit older than her.
Yeah. And their relationship was conducted in secret against a very turbulent time. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired your imagining of Esther and her relationship with Reuben Redpath?
Yeah, well, I suppose I am, just like yourself, a real romantic at heart. And, you know, I remember as far back as going to see my first movie was in the Regal Cinema in Portadown when I was about 6 years of age, and going to see The Sound of Music. And again, that would have inspired me greatly even as a child. I remember looking at this big screen whenever in the 70s you just used to seeing this black and white box in the corner that had a few hours television, but then there was this big massive screen, and you're so young, and all these beautiful songs. And I remember thinking, oh, I really want to write like that. I want to sing like that. And ironically enough, one of the songs, and it will always be my favourite, one of my favourite songs is Climb Every Mountain. But yeah, I also loved the fact of the will they, won't they romance that they had. In The Sound of Music, and I felt that as well for the Yankee at Benbradagh. I think when you're writing a book, you've got to, without even knowing, you put yourself into it. There's part of you goes into it, whether you know it or not. Where Esther is concerned, I don't think that her and I would have had a lot in common, other than she had made wrong choices. I was always very good at that.
I think everybody is, to be honest.
and a lot of heartache she had in her life, which I understand too. So therefore,
you can identify with her.
I could identify. Yeah.
She was very determined, and you know, there was an expectation that she was going to marry. Was it Stephen? Stephen.
Yes.
And she was adamant that in spite of and I think that there was a pressure there, but it was unspoken. And, you know, she was very much like, I'm your friend, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And even the dynamic between the flourishing of her romance with Reuben Redpath, the power of the love that she felt for him, but the loyalty that she, you know, the choice that she made for her family, essentially, and that sense of being very, very loyal to the wishes of her father, whom she adored. And her mother, and that she was prepared at that point to sacrifice what she wanted, because obviously, and I'm very conscious of talking and giving away huge plot twists. So I'm trying to say this.
You're doing it really well.
without saying too much. But there was an event that happened that really altered the course of her family life.
Yes, there was.
A very tragic event. And on the back of that, there was a decision made that meant that she was not going to see Reuben anymore. And I loved the way that, in spite of the fact that as a young girl, had she had the freedom to make the choice that she wanted in a society that wasn't locally or globally littered and rooted in and steeped in conflict.
Yes.
That her life choices and her life experiences would have had a much more powerful and fulfilling outcome for her, especially given the ending.
Yes.
And I think, again, we're going to talk about that later, and I don't want to say too much to give it away, because it's just something that as you're reading, you're carried, I began to think, well, these are fictional characters, but this very much could be...
That's right. Somebody's
story is written in here.
Absolutely.
The unknown.
Yeah, it is a fictional story, but some of the content in it is definitely real. These things had happened, and had they come together now in this day and age, who would have cared?
Yeah, but
nobody would have cared at that time. I mean, it was a more disciplined time. I mean, people had morals. I feel that people have sort of threw morals out the window in this day and age as well. But at that time, it was so hard.
They're very much, and I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yes.
That there was very much a sense of, that things are fundamentally right, wrong, that you have a duty of care, not just to yourself, but to your family.
Yes, it wasn't just about you.
Yes,
it just wasn't about what you want, what makes you feel better. You had a duty of care to think about everybody around you. The decisions that you made had consequences, and that was in Esther's life. And sadly, she had to put herself completely out of the picture and make a decision that affected the rest of her life.
And she was absolutely, the tragedy that befell her personally within it, I just felt, it really did hit in the solar plexus, because the tragedies that are written in here are tragedies that can happen for no reason in life. And that human beings, it doesn't matter where they are geographically, sadly will have an experience of. And then that's enough to grapple with the tragedies that you have no control over. And then when you add in the tragedy of conflict and those things, you're just thinking, it just makes you consider life and conflict in a very different way, and the nature of humanity,
And that's exactly what I had to do. And when I started to write that, and that was in 2022, and it was January, the first 6 weeks, I think, of January. I completely was on my own for most of that time with my laptop. And actually writing that and having to go through, I experienced it in my mind. I did a lot of research. You have to become that character. You have to go through those emotions, even though you need to know those emotions even in your own life to really capture that in the book. And I just found myself just crying. I mean, it really took so much out of me to be, people think, oh, you wrote a book. What you don't realize is that it takes so much to write a book. It takes so much out of you. You've got to put so much into it.
And when you're pouring that in, and I know my husband is just sitting off camera here, so I'm going to tell this story. It's just when you mentioned crying, because I had an emotional reaction to that as well, where I cried.
Oh,
no. And when I remember one Christmas, I was bought a book by my lovely husband, and he had gone away to do something. When he came back, I was in tears, and he was like, "My goodness, what's wrong?" And I went, I couldn't get the words out, and he's going, "Are you crying at a book?" I'm like, "Yes, you big Neanderthal." But that is very much it. So it's really, really, as a reader, and I consume, a lot of books, and I love to read. It's what I do to relax. It's my go-to. To hear an author saying that, it's just that symmetrical kind of experience, the emotion that goes into it.
Yes.
And when it's authentic, as you've said, because you're bringing so much of yourself and your lived experience there, and that is responded to, the reader picks up on that and has that emotional reaction. So I love that kind of reciprocal experience there as well.
Good to know that. Yeah.
So it is. It's very, very powerful. So God, I'm loving this conversation today.
Oh, good.
Thank you. We'll keep chatting. So when we've been talking there about our protagonists and the conflict, the theme of conflict has come up time and time again.
Yes.
And it underwrites every aspect of the novel. In the first instance, we've talked about the conflict of war, both at a local and global level, so the Troubles and the Cold War.
Yes.
And there's also what could be coined, and maybe my terminology isn't right here, so forgive me, but I'm just trying to put to try and articulate. There's nearly like a cultural or racial conflict, which is hinted at within the title. Even, the Yankee.
Yeah.
Because, that's like a colloquialism that kind of sets, an American in Ireland in a particular era as something other. So they were very much an outsider.
Yes.
So it was nearly used in a derogatory way. And I find that really, it's just like, okay, there's another window into that. And it was almost like they were from, the other side of the pond, so to speak. And, here they were on our soil, and it was, it reinforced that sense of insular, close-knit society that Ireland was.
Well, I was used that word Yankee because my mother and father, they had me whenever they were 44. I was the youngest of 6. So they had went through the war years.
Yeah.
And so I was used to the word Yankee.
I heard it growing up too.
Yeah. And I suppose nowadays, with I call it the curse of political correctness. Yeah. When people, get so offended easily. At that time, it was just, that was an American. And yes, it was the outsider, the Yankee. Had come in, even though they were our allies, we still seen them as outsiders. So, and I could feel that that's what the people in that community would have felt. Them Yankees coming over here and setting up.
It wasn't said with warmth, which it wouldn't have been said, I imagine, in that context with warmth,
especially with Joey.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You can really hear
him.
The word, the intonation, everything. So, Lorna, without giving too much away, and I'm very conscious that I really want people to read this, and I do think that it is a must read. It's fair to say that as the plot twists unfurl and the plot devices become, are revealed to the reader, that all is not what it seems.
Yes.
So Esther, obviously, we know that she had to end her relationship with Reuben for everyone's safety.
Yes.
And that included Reuben as well, because there was a huge plot twist there with him that I have to say I did not see coming. And I was like, where did that come from? It was just that.
Nor did I when I was writing it.
That was just, and it just really, really,
it's shocking.
Even within that, you're like, my jaw hit the floor. And I found that so intriguing within that 25-year period. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because that's pivotal to the ending.
Yes.
And I find that really, really intriguing. And I just thought, even within that, there was a romance.
Yes.
And
all was not as it seems. Yeah.
And I think that, on a very human level, that my takeaway from it was that we all have tragedies and experiences in our life. And when I was kind of considering everything, and like there were questions that my brain was generating and grappling with as a result of reading this, because you have the very historical context, which is, it nearly functions as a character, you know, when you start to delve down into it. And you just wonder, and this is, you know, where I'm kind of giving a bit away of myself, like, what was it all for? What was it? When you consider it and you're taken on this roller coaster of emotion, and you have the, you know, the swooning moment and the romance and the hope and the love and the all of that.
The roller coaster of love.
You know, and then you set that aside and you see how it has been derailed and, you know, everything that happens within that. And then you have the ending, which I am not giving anything away about, because my God, that was when the tears, you know, it was like I was like Alice Cooper, the mascara was down my face.
I know that one
just
all
like,
right,
thank God I'm not reading this in public. People would be wondering what's going on. But it really was so gripping. And you just wonder, what was it all for? And I do think that the difficult choices that Esther made, they impacted all of her life. The tragic events that hit the O'Donnell household reiterated the political dynamic of 1970s Ireland. And I do think that it provokes the reader to ask the question that if their story happened today, would it have had a different outcome? And, you know, other people might have a different answer, but mine is a resounding yes.
Yes, definitely. Without a shadow of a doubt, you know, people are more open about things like that. And it was truly heartbreaking. You know, like, first of all, there was like 30 years of conflict in Northern Ireland. And funny, when I was driving up here this morning, I was thinking about that and how we get used to living in a war zone and become comfortable in what's going on around us, even though we shouldn't be comfortable.
You're
trying to make a life in it. You're desensitized. And it was so difficult. It was a relationship that really was not meant to work, as many relationships at that time. And you know, people truly loved one another. I mean, whether they'd have been Catholic or Protestant at that time. And you would have heard, as I said earlier, you know, you need to marry your own kind. But that was even for safety, a mechanism as well, because it was to keep families safe. And as for Esther, I mean, he was such a high profile character too, and even became even more of a high profile character as we found out more about him. So which made it even more difficult for her. And yes, it was heartbreaking for her and for her family and also for her mother.
Yeah.
You know, how her mother would have felt.
That scene after the event that kind of...
Yes.
It was a watershed moment. It was a big event.
Yes.
And the impact that conflict had on the dynamic between the relationship between mother and daughter. And whilst I was shocked, I felt it. Yes. You know, I could understand and the tragedy of all of that and the damage that was done there, but thankfully, you know, it shows again, you know, the connection of that very true familial maternal love and the love that a child has for a mother, and the concept of forgiveness that was written into that as well.
Forgiveness. It was definitely, I mean, even for us all, living through the troubles, there has to be forgiveness. You can't go on without forgiveness, and that was very much part of the story. The both of them had to forgive each other. And there was actually a scene, I'm sure you know now what it is, for the two of them together and talking to each other, and it really hit that heart-rending moment of mother and daughter.
Yeah.
And the truth was revealed.
Yeah.
And I was hysterical writing it.
Yeah.
I really was. And to be honest, the words flowed.
Yeah.
I really found it easy to write that part. In fact, I couldn't stop.
Yeah. It was nearly, the difficulty was reining yourself back in.
The difficulty was to stop crying.
I can empathise, I can relate to that, because I did a shed, cry me a river. I was in buckets. I was in absolute buckets. And, you know, when I read that, I just considered, and that was, you know, I thought, what was, in terms of the ending, and I'm not going to give, but there's a beautiful kind of arc of resolution there. Yes. But it's not that happily ever after trope or anything like that. Not. It's very complex. Yes. It's very, very deep. And I think it gives it talks to, you know, the depth of a very true love and a very real love, that it defied the odds. It defied the conflict. It defied geographical separation.
That's right.
The cultural differences, you know, the age and stage that they were at, the trauma that as a couple they endured as well, his ability to forgive her, and to you know, and I was just like, my goodness me, you know, there's a depth that this is at one stage, I'm like,
it was still strong.
Yeah.
Their love for one another still stood strong at the test of time.
And that is just, at the end of it, you're just thinking again, why? What was it all for?
What is it all for? I mean, we'll look at all kind of conflict, and what was it all about? So many people killed unnecessarily in conflict. What's it all about? It's
a text that gives you so much to think about.
Yeah.
And it makes you ask questions. And I think that's the sign of a really, really good text, because it makes you, first of all, interrogate your own reactions and thoughts, and, you know.
Stirs it all up.
It does. And then you try to think of, you know, you always try to put yourself in a situation and how you would react.
Yes.
And all of those things. And I think that anybody who reads the text will come to the end, you know, to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
And I think that's very powerful.
Thank you.
It really is.
I mean, when I had finished the book, I'd put so much effort into getting to know every character that when I had finished the book, it was like saying cheerio to a family, and again crying, but and for a while after, I missed when I had written the script, first of all, but I was so glad that I could go back to develop it into a book, because then I was you know, embracing it all again.
It was like you were revisiting,
going through it even more, because it was a book this time, and I had to put so much more into it. So just it's really, you know, I love hearing, you know, the kind of evolution of their story, and know that the legacy of their story in this book will continue to live on and to shape, you know, the thought processes of readers, and like that's powerful. All.
It does, and that sounds cheesy, but it's not.
Oh no, it's love conquers all.
It's true. So, in terms of just trying to draw everything to a close, and we're going to come full circle. At the beginning, you talked about, I suppose, your own journey into writing, and how the phrase that you said, and it has stuck with me, and I thought, I'm going to remember that. I was born a writer.
Yes.
You know, and it has always been within you.
Yes.
In spite of everything that life experiences from your a very young age tried to do to kind of beat it out of you or prevent you from tapping into it.
Yeah.
So
smother it sometimes,
For any would-be authors or creative writers who are struggling with confidence or are trying currently to hone their craft, what words of wisdom can you offer them to help them persevere in the pursuit of their literary dreams?
Oh, right. Well, I think I believe that everybody is born with some kind of skill or talent, and there's a wee verse in the Bible and it says, "Don't bury your talent." And even though that referred to money, I actually had read it and thought, well, everybody does have something in life to contribute. Every one of us. It doesn't matter who you are, and we have to give. We have to give it, and you've got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to do it. Anybody that's out there thinking, I should have done this, I should have done that. Well, like nothing was ever achieved through lack of confidence. Yeah. So you really have to get up and do it. And it's worth it. It takes time and effort, but anything that is done in a good way with time and effort has a really good outcome. So please go do it. Go do it. That's all I can say. And I mean, I wasn't and haven't been ever academic. Mm-hmm. So it's not about being academic. It's about everybody having their own thing to give, mm-hmm. whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So go do it.
The publisher wasn't saying to you, how many A stars did you get or anything else? They were judging you on what you had
yes.
produced.
Yes.
And also, just to kind of pick up on that, you also mentioned earlier on that even though you had two publishing houses vying for yes. Breakfast in Heaven, you did say that prior to that you had been submitting work and
yes.
you were very familiar with the thanks but no thanks
with rejection.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But rejection just makes you stronger.
Yeah.
You've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and keep going. You just have to, mm-hmm. Or else you just wriggle up and die. And that's get out there and do it.
You have to. It's triumph over adversity, and that determination yes. and self-belief.
Yes,
and I do
which
think
which I find really hard. And there's always that voice in the background going, "You're not good enough. Mm-hmm. This is not for you."
And it's your voice. It's nobody else's voice.
Well, this is it. You're putting yourself down. Yeah. So
just self-belief, determination. Triumph over adversity and resilience, and putting yourself out of your comfort zone. And I'm so glad that all I'm doing is echoing the words that you have just said there, because I think that especially for young people today,
yes,
that's such an important message.
Yes.
That you have to try and hone your craft.
Yes.
You have to work at it. You have to edit it. You have to revisit it. And you have to be prepared to hear the word no, or that it's not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that's no at this moment.
That's right.
And you have to keep going for it. Well, goodness me, so much to talk about. And I hope that going forward, Lorna, when you're having other events, certainly let us know. We will definitely. We'll be down with the mics and the cameras to keep you on your
You're
on your
more
toes.
than welcome. It'll be great.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for joining us today in conversation. It's been a wonderful conversation, and we could continue this on for hours afterwards.
Yes.
But absolutely wonderful. If you haven't already had the opportunity to have a read and a nosy of this, I would recommend that you do. It's definitely a must read, The Yankee at Benbradagh, and you can order it on Amazon. You can visit Lorna's website.
Yeah, or you can go to McReynolds pub
in Dungiven, and you can possibly have a little see of the inspiration for some of the context and some of the key scenes in the text there. So it's a must read, and it's very, very digestible, extremely enjoyable, and it will certainly give you plenty of food for thought. That's it for today.